Hey everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. I hope everybody's doing great. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Hopefully you're well fed and finding good deals all over the internet and even locally, hopefully. Today's Saturday, Small Business Saturday. So if you can support some small businesses, that's always a good one. And then we got Cyber Monday, and I think they should just lump it all into, just call it Black Friday or something, week, month. But anyway, let's see. Before we start, speaking of Black Friday, I got deals going on my website that I'll share if anybody didn't hear. So make sure that you're signed up for the email newsletter. That's where you get first dibs on all the deals. And many of them I only do the email. I don't even put them on social media a lot of times. So sign up. And it also gives you a replay link to the live streams in the weekly email. Let's see here. So first off, we have the Beginner's Guide to Resin Casting. So that's my ebook that kind of covers all the beginning stuff. The way that I wrote it, what I found was there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I want to make pen blanks. I want to get into resin casting. And then they don't do it forever because they don't know where to start kind of thing. And so this is what it is. It's not going to give you any, super crazy, details on how to get like the perfect stuff. I heavily filtered myself. It's full of information, but I think it's only like 20 pages or something like that long, so not super long, but it covers the things that you need to know and like gives you an understanding of like, a lot of people don't even realize like terminology and things. Like resin is like the umbrella, coverage. I mean, that could include epoxy, polyester resin, UV resin, like that's like every kind of thing, right? But in there, for casting resins, what we usually use, there's three types. There's epoxy, urethane, and there's polyester. And so I kind of cover things like that, where like you understand like, okay, there's these differences between these products. Here's how they kind of compare. Gives you like which resin to kind of pick, how to pick a resin kind of thing. We kind of covered that last week. I was kind of explaining at the end, a lot of people are like, should I try this resin? Does it do what you want it to do? That's the thing, is it's not about like, should I try this? Think about what you're trying to do and then, pick something. And I give some examples of different stuff you can do with resins. It's not just about pen blanks or bowl blanks or whatever. Lots of different ways to use resin. And the reason I included that, and it gets out there, like, cause I included like props, for cosplay stuff or, tables. And it's not so much like, I understand that a lot of people who buy my book probably are in the turning world, and I went way beyond that. But understanding how you can use resin is like important to me. Like it really, when I started kind of looking at different people's use of it, ways that they use it, then you can apply things in your own resin casting, whether you're making the table or not. Some of the things, you may say, oh, I can do that. And maybe that'll give you an idea on how to use it for like a pen blank or, whatever you're making. So anyway, lots of information. It covers all the tools and supplies you need and all that kind of stuff. And this time of year, I always put it on 50% off. So it's a big discount. Let's see, where am I going here? I got to figure out where'd my chat go? So there's the link. There's also a link in the description of the video for anybody watching after the fact, but a big one. So that link it'll automatically apply the discount, but the discount code, just make sure that it applied it, is half off. Okay, so boom. So that's the code for the ebook. And then basically, I don't like doing like, oh, we're having this sale on this day and all this stuff. I did that once and I was like, this is ridiculous. People don't want 50,000 emails and I don't want to have to deal with them. So I just did 20% off everything on the website. And then, 50% off on the ebook, but 20% off literally every single other item. And if for some reason I missed something, didn't include it, just shoot me an email and let me know that it didn't apply it to something. So there's 20% off everything, and that goes through, it ends at on Monday night at 11:59 p.m. So there's a link to that, and that again will apply. You can lump both of those codes. So when you're checking out, you can enter each of the codes, and it'll apply to everything in your cart. Both, if you pick up the ebook in like, I don't know, Pigments or something like that, whatever else. And the code, just to make sure that it got applied. And if something gets messed up, you forgot to apply the code or whatever, just shoot me an email and let me know. And actually, that reminds me, I think Harold might have, and there might have been a couple other people. I think Harold put an order in, and I don't think that there was any codes. So if you didn't apply the code, and if you didn't mean to not apply the code or whatever, if you want the code applied for this weekend, if you got an order in with me, let me know. Shoot me an email and let me know. I didn't do the code, and I'll just send you. I don't know if I can adjust. I don't know if I can after the fact apply the code somehow. I don't know how that system works, but either way, I'll just send you a refund for the amount that it should have been. So let me know, and the sooner the better on that, if you let me know, because the orders will probably be going out on Monday, I think. So if the orders go out, I can still probably apply it, but let me know beforehand if you can. So we got some discounts going on, and we got the ornament challenge is coming up soon, so that'll be fun. So lots of things going on, and I this morning I woke up kind of late, and I had things to do before, and then I logged into the Saturday morning cartoons, and just as I got in there, they were talking about Chicken Egg Blue. I was like, yes. It was perfect timing. But then I had to go and help Gretchen, so I missed the end of the thing, and Jamie made one of the little caricature pictures of me, and it's really cool. He sent that to me, but then I caught back up, and I was like, oh, I missed it. Boo. So anyway, so I hope everybody, like I said, had a good Thanksgiving. We had a good one. It was really fun. We had lots of family things going on, lots of food, all that kind of stuff. Some football happening on the TV. Actually, it was kind of cool. We got to meet, how is this person related to me? Like a sister-in-law's, step-sister-in-law's new boyfriend. And they're older, but he was a really cool person. Pretty interesting stuff. Got to talk to him. He actually was born in Chile, moved to the U.S. when he was like 7, and he was kind of an interesting guy. He paints cars. He has a body shop. So really interesting to meet someone new, not just the same old family members, and all that. So anyway, hopefully you had an equally good one too. So let's see. Oh, thanks, Joseph. Yeah, I really tried, and I think it's good. I'm not just patting myself on the back. It took me it's only like I said, it's only like a 20 or 25 page book, but I really, really worked on it for like a year. And I even have made some updates to kind of improve it a little bit, like versions or whatever. But I wanted it to be that, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so if you read 20 pages, you should have a pretty good foundation on what's going on. And it's not just stir the resin up. It's how does resin work? Simplified. If you understand how it works and what's kind of going on with the whole thing, it makes it so much easier to just start, doing this stuff. And then there's also the simple things. Safety, I cover that too as well, which is important. But, a lot of the things are what are the pitfalls to avoid? If you understand how things work and understand what not to do, you're going to do so much better. And there's even a little kind of sample, a tutorial kind of step-by-step thing to make a pen blank. Just a simple one. Here's the steps, go through this stuff, and you'll be good to go. I think videos for a lot of people are probably easier than a step-by-step guide, but some people may like that better. So either way, it's a pretty cool thing. So 50% off for the book. Woo! Let's see. Did I miss any other things? Chad's in the house. What's up, man? I think I know someone out from under the ornaments. Yeah. So remind me, what day is the ornament challenge firing up for the auctions? Let me know again. I always forget. And I'll put a link. I'll probably post and stuff, and just to remind people when it starts, what's going on with all that stuff. I've been so busy the last few days that it's been kind of crazy. So today, let's get into what we're doing today. Today I thought, it's been a while, let's do a 5-color pour. and we will have it December 2nd. That's what I thought it was. I just didn't want to say the wrong thing. We're going to do, so it's a 5-color pour. We're going to have the super chats fired up. We always love these. I always love these because the way that it works out, you know, we have people super chat and then just pick a random color. And I swear we've done this, I don't know how many times, and every single one, they turn out really good. You guys pick excellent colors to go. So we're going to open up the super chats. You can super chat and throw in a color. Like I said, we'll stop at 5. If somebody randomly puts another one in, maybe we'll make it 6 and we'll just deviate. It's not a big deal. So we'll do that. So we'll open up the super chats so you guys can pick some colors. And then I got a bonus one. I didn't even mention this in the description or anything like that. We're going to double down. I want to try to get the December Pen Blank Club stuff out early, and the thing's all messed up. I got the days, and like I need to be doing these earlier. I keep running up against the wire where like there's not even enough time to pour them on the stream and get them out to people like they should be shipping like in 2 days, you know, on the following Monday. And somehow I need to scoot things back. Everything got messed up with like me being out of town and different stuff. So hopefully by doing both of them today and then getting them out early, we can kind of, hopefully that'll reset things. I don't know. We'll see. It's hard to get my brain wrapped around what's going on. But so for the second one, I thought it'd be really fun. I'm going to pull out some of my pigments. And I don't think I've done this specifically, this combination for a Christmas type blank. What I want to do is I want to pull out the liquid pigments, and we're going to add macro sparkle to all of them. So we're going to do a red, white, and green with liquid pigments. And I thought that would be kind of an interesting mixture of stuff, throwing that together. And we might actually just do like a mica for the white, make it like really pearly, and then mica plus macro. So I may toss out the liquid pigment on the white specifically, but we'll do a red and a green, and we'll just add some macro sparkle to that, and we'll have kind of a solid color but sparkly kind of doohickey thing going on.
Shut up and take my money.
So it should be pretty fun. So we got some super chats rolling in. We got, let's see here, what's happening here? Okay, I got to put that thing up. We've got gold, we've got turquoise, P-Town. Oh, I have it. Oh, I do. Deep blue.
Shut up and take my money.
Nice. Copper. Sweet. Marquetta, you forgot to put a color. Which color do you want? And we got Mark with Yamagata red. So how many colors we got? I think we already went over 5. You guys are getting kind of crazy. So maybe it'll be a 10 color blank. I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It looks like, did I mess that up? 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we got 6 right now. Marquetta wants pink. That's a good one. Cool. And so we're gonna roll with the beast. We're gonna beast it up. And I'm just gonna kind of linger just in case anybody else wants to get in. I'll extend it to 7. I'm not that worried about it. We'll just call it a 5 color. What I find is like a lot of people, I remember like, I don't know how many years ago, somebody was doing like a 50 color blank, and I'm like, whatever. I mean, honestly, and so what I kind of found, like 10 color was always like this amazing number. People would get into the 10 color. But what I kind of found was like between 5 and 10, there's not, and then beyond that, there's really not much difference in the look, I don't find. So just, that's why I usually pick 5. 5 usually is pretty good. 7 is a pretty good, or 6 or 7. You start adding stuff, but once you like get to 10, there's not, visibly, I don't really see a whole lot of difference between 5 and 10. But it does significantly, so, and I guess the reason I do this, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. 10 colors, fine. I just, what I find though is it can make it significantly harder to get everything ready, especially if you got like high temperatures in the summer or something like that. If you're trying to get 10 cups ready, it significantly makes it more, you know, once you get to like 10 and then beyond that, it's kind of ridiculous. It's hard to get everything ready and ready to pour and all that kind of stuff, right? So like, and if there's really not that much difference, like that's why I kind of recommend people 5 is pretty good, 5 or 6. Like it's not going to be that much different than 10. So yeah. Yeah, no, it didn't turn out gray, but I mean, it was just so, the problem was you got like different shades of red and it was just I didn't do it. It wasn't me because I just, like I said, things just get pointless after a while. You just say, I made a 50 color blank, great, whatever. You know, at that point, like you're really going to have to pull out like epoxy. You know, we were talking about which resin should I pick. That's a point, like you're not going to get 50 colors mixed into Alumilite clear slow, like on time. There's just not going to happen unless you got 50 people helping you, you know. So yeah, more than 5 in South Texas, not good. Even in my shop, I mean, when it's 85, like I wouldn't be messing around with 10 colors too much in the summer. You're like, that's one of those cases where you got to have them in the cups for sure. Like you got to put all the powders in there and you're definitely not going to be doing what I do typically where I'm like measuring, you know, like weighing every single cup to get 25 grams or whatever in there. You're just like dumping resin in and double-handed stirring and oh man, it gets kind of crazy. And I just find like for the risk that's involved, like if you blow that pour, you're going to be so mad at yourself. Then you got to do it again and hope it didn't, you know, mess up. So like somewhere between 5 and 10 is a good number, you know. So, all right, it looks like we're good to go here. Do I need anything? Because I need gloves. That's what I need. Get some gloves on. I'm trying to think if we did anything else. If there's any other fun things that have been going on. Not really. The weather's pretty nice here. Pretty reasonable weather, which I'm on the fence about. It was nice that we didn't have to deal with, like, you know, when you're driving, having to deal with, you know, snow and all that kind of stuff. It just makes things a little more difficult. But so it's pretty nice weather. I actually got to go on a bike ride on Thanksgiving. That was fun. However, the snowboarder in me is like, you know, okay, time to dump. Let's get some snow going. Let's do it. All right, so overhead view. So we got our Beast mold. You can pick these guys up at turnerswarehouse.com. I don't know what all the sales are for Turner's Warehouse. I haven't kept my eyes on everything. So maybe they're on sale. I'm not sure. Let me know if they're on sale. And we're going to pull out our little booklet thing, our notebook. All right, so today is 11/20. Oh, and I have, there's one other thing to share. I've got a pen. So this week has been crazy. I got video, but I never got the thing posted. Here is the pen. So you guys saw it, you know, whatever, but I also got the nib installed. I got the section and everything, and it looks pretty good, I think. Again, we kind of had a little bit of a mishap on the body, so the blues are a little different between body and cap, just slightly different, a little darker in the body. But the section matches up with the body part really well. I'm glad that I decided not to go with just a white one. I think it would have been neat if maybe like we had this much blue, you know, like it was like more blue and then you got white, like it'd be kind of an interesting breakup. But with having such a small amount of blue in the body, I really think that was kind of necessary. But we got the whole thing going. And actually, so I was having some issues. I felt like the threads were not great. And I think what happened, I think what I should have done was just clean, you know, thrown the thing in the sonic cleaner because the threads are actually butter smooth. So I don't know. Turned out pretty good. I didn't fill it or anything, but I did just make sure that everything fit the way it's supposed to. But I really like the shape of this. It's really kind of cool. And you can like stand it up. That may not work on that thing. You can stand it up. I like the point actually. I don't know. Anyway, got that all done. Pretty excited about it. Yeah, the blues are fun in that. Again, and somebody in the original video, the original somewhere, the live stream or something, posted and they're like, I don't know about the brown. And yeah, I think maybe it really needs thin brown things. And it might even be better for what I was going for to have the brown in with the white, maybe with really thin, because I wanted it to be like tree branches. So, you really got to put just a very small amount and kind of swirl it up, I think. I don't know. But overall, I mean, I like it. I like the brown where it's kind of thin parts. I'm not loving the big blobs in this part as much, but I do like the blues. And so again, we put a mixture of different blues, and that's why I think this blue really kind of turned out great. We had some interference blue, we had some see-through blue, we had some mica powder blue. So, it just kind of goes to show you, sometimes, you say, okay, I want to make a blue and white or, whatever colors pen. We'll go to chatting with Zach Cam. Sometimes, just pulling out, going, okay, here's a blue, and you pull out a mica and you just throw it in there. Not to say that they don't look good, but if you want it to have more depth, more interest in that color, if you throw a couple different things together, just different shades of blue maybe, or, like I said, you can work in some of those interference colors, the ghosts, and just do something where there's like different types of blues in there, or, whatever the color is. It can really add a lot of interest to things. And you can do like a dirty pour, you can do transparent, and this is one of the kind of little secrets, or I don't know, it's not a secret because he's got it in a video, but Jonathan Brooks, I mean, he's one of the best blank makers on the planet, and one of his little tips or tricks that he's shared in a video is that a lot of his colors, number one, he really does a lot of, and I don't know that you necessarily have to worry about this. He has reasons for doing this. He really wants things to be very unique. I find that you can be unique by using whatever, even if you're not messing around. But he likes to make his own colors. Like he'll mix micas together, which I do that sometimes too. Sometimes I don't. I don't know if it matters that much, but that's a way. He mixes pigments together to make his own like kind of colors. But then he oftentimes will do a cup of, he'll just use the Alumilite dyes, the transparent ones, add a little bit of dye, mix up a separate little cup where it's just resin and transparent dye. And then he's got his cup of mica powder, let's just say in this case blue. And then he mixes them, separately, but then like right before he pours, he dumps the transparent resin into the mica. And that adds that kind of depth and different look than just if you just had mica powder. It makes that color look a little bit different in the blank, and it's a dirty pour. He's not doing dirty pour with all the colors. He's just dirty pouring the two blues together, and maybe he'll do that also with like a red transparent and a red mica. So it's an interesting way to add interest to blanks, to change it up from just like, oh, here's this blue mica powder, But even if you just do two different shades of blue mica powder and use both of them when you're pouring, that changes the final look as well, in different ways. So it's pretty cool. Let's see here. Yeah, it does look like a vacuum tube, doesn't it? Vacuum grease. Seal, I'm not sure. Okay, so David's asking, the seal keeps falling out. Yeah, I mean, you can just put like some like a rubber cement might help. I don't know. Sometimes you can just actually put some Vaseline around the whole thing and it'll just kind of stick in there a little bit better. So, all right, so let's go here. We got, let me look at my colors here. 5 color pour. This is 1129. And let's see here. So the Beast holds 5, usually mix up. Let's see, I'm gonna have to add a little bit more, I think, on this one, but so I'm gonna, so one thing to think about when you're, I had to kind of reset my brain for a second. So if you're just doing like a couple colors or whatever together, 540 grams tends to work fine for this. We've got quite a few different cups that we're doing though on this. And the problem is you're never going to get all the resin out of every single cup, right? And so the more cups that you have, the more residual resin is going to be, you know, you're not going to be able to scrape it all out, which means you're probably going to have to adjust how much resin you mix up just to make sure that you don't short, you know, the pour. So I think I'm going to go to, I think I'm going to go to 5. Let's try 550. I'm just going to do 560. I mean, a little extra wasted resin. It's not wasted. We'll put it in the faux burl mold. So I'm going to mix up 560 grams. Yeah, okay. So that's 200, and I'm going to also mix up because I'm going to use a separate mixing cup. So 285. I'm going to add a little extra for that first mixing cup. Times 2, and then we've got 6 colors, I believe. So we got gold, and then I'm just gonna again, a lot of times you can just kind of estimate stuff. So I'm just gonna see what 6 colors. Let's see, 560 divided by 6. It's around 90, 95, somewhere between 90 and 95 grams per cup. So we're gonna do gold. We're gonna do, and I think the best gold, I mean, really, is probably the 14 karat nugget. I mean, that's what Mr. Gold likes. So 14 karat. And let's see, what's the second color? We got the P-Town turquoise. We got some deep blue. Deep blue. So here's what I'm thinking on that. Let's go for, I'm just going to add the transparent. So with the Alumilite dyes, the blue, not the ocean blue. Not ocean blue. So this is, I buy huge things of it and I just put it in these little bottles. So, but the just normal blue, translucent blue, as opposed to the ocean blue, that's a different one. That's what's in here. So blue, if you add enough of it, it's pretty dark. So that's a pretty deep blue. I think we'll try that out. We'll add a little different stuff, and that'll probably go really well with the P-Town turquoise as well. It'll be a good mixture there. Pale blue. Let's see here. So we got, what else we got? Copperish. Well, I got antique copper. I do have the copper, penny copper. So I'm going to let you pick. Do you want the antique copper, that's just more of a mica, or do you want the penny copper, which is more like the 14 karat nugget, like the big chunks? Let me know. I'll try to keep an eye on the comments. There's some copper. We got pink. And we got Yamagata, favorite red ever. And for pink, so we got watermelon pink with yeah, that might be kind of cool looking. We haven't done any of the solid colors. Let's see, what other colors are in this? Turquoise, blue. Copper. So the rose red is a pretty good mica, or if you want, we can go with some watermelon pink. It's not as hot pink, I would say, or whatever, as the rose red. That one's a pretty, like, bam, in your face. Pretty bright pink, but that's going to be pearly. And then we got the watermelon, which is a little bit more subdued. But but it's a pretty good pink too. So let me know on those two which ones you guys want. You didn't know they sold the dye bottles that big? Yeah, they're very expensive too. And so the reason I buy this much of it, or have bought the gigantic ones, is before I switched to the round blanks for the team colors, Alumilite white dye, and this is the reason why I had to completely change all of my dye recipes, okay? Alumilite white resin. All right, so that's another one. That's a very, very different resin than it's not clear. You mix A and B and it turns solid white, okay? And that's cool. I liked it to begin with. The reason I started using it was for these kind of mixing colors. But you definitely never are gonna have to paint tubes because it's literally a totally opaque blank. And with resin, and there's other companies that sell resins that do this kind of thing. With those, you can use a translucent dye with an opaque resin and get an opaque color, right? And realistically, there's almost no reason to use like the opaque dyes. You can get away with a lot less. These are very concentrated as well. So the moral of this story is I was using transparent dyes to make those team color blanks. But those recipes do not work in clear resin. That's why I had to completely change every single thing from scratch. Come up with use a totally different dye and all that kind of stuff for clear resin. So that's why I bought those, and I'm probably not going to be buying those gigantic things anymore because they are like ridiculously expensive. But they go for, ever. But I don't think you really need to. They got a couple different sizes. They got I think that's a 16 ounce. This is a 10 or an 8 ounce. I mean, these are probably going to be plenty. They might have a 4, like a 4 or a 2 ounce or something like that. And then they got the little 1 ounce bottles as well. So lots of choices there. Lots of choices. Let's see. Did you guys pick? Let's see. Rose. Let's see. How about if we go with Rose ore? I like seeing opaque. Well, you know what we could do? We could try, I don't know how well it'll work. We can maybe try and do like a dirty pour with those two. Pour them together and we can honestly use both of them. So let's try that and see how that goes. Let's see, do we, how about the penny copper or, who was it? Let's see. Vinny, do you want penny copper, which is like the flaky stuff, like the 14 karat nugget, or the antique copper, which would just be like a copper mica? Oh, there. Sorry, Vinny. I finally found it. All right, we're going antique. I'm okay. It's hard. There's so many things going on in the chat. Okay, so for copper, we're doing antique. Let's switch that. Antique. And this is a P-Town color. It's a good one. T-copper, PT turquoise, or P-Town. Pink, we're going to do that kind of mixture. We're going to do watermelon. I think this will be kind of an interesting thing. Watermelon / rose. Dirty. And Yamagata red. Okay, so for this pink, so, these cups are going to be like 90 to 95, somewhere in that range, grams each. I'm just going to measure one and then we'll be good. For this pink, we're going to do 45 times 2. 245 cups. So technically, we moved it into the seven number range, seven colors. So these two are going there, and for everything else, we'll use the 100. Yeah, we'll just use these cups. They'll be fine. So 2, 4, 6, 7. So again, when you're doing complicated stuff, it makes way more sense to, if you've got mica powders, I don't love putting dyes in the bottom of a cup. I don't know. Probably not a big deal, but at the same time, it's gonna kind of half stick to the cup and you gotta make sure you scrape it up. I'd rather just dump it in later. So unless it's all gonna be liquid dye, liquid pigments of some sort, dyes, I don't know. I don't even know if I just do it that way. I'd rather add it later. A lot of times I also weigh them, so I don't know. I'll leave it up to you which way you want to go with that. I feel more comfortable just letting it kind of drip into the resin. I feel like it'll mix better than like sticking it to the bottom of the cup. I don't know. I definitely, if you're using like a paper cup, I don't know that I care as much, or a plastic cup that definitely has a solid, just flat bottom. But when you're using something like a solo cup, I think this is where I really started. These things have little ridges and there's all this stuff going on, right? And if you drop the liquid dye, there's going to be stuff stuck down there and you're not going to get it out. And you're going to be mixing and little bits of that stuff are going to keep coming up, and you may run into the problem of having uncured dye being poured into your blank. So that's the reason I don't really do it. But again, in most cases, I don't know if it really makes that much difference. Typically, I've got plenty of time to just do whatever though. So we're doing 90. So I'm going to do, I think most of these, let's see here. So for the penny, copper, and the gold, I think we're going to do a teaspoon of those. Oh, we're not doing penny copper. So for the gold, I'm going to do a teaspoon. For the micas, I think we're going to do half teaspoons. Let's see what a quarter teaspoon looks like on all these things. Quarter teaspoon for the mica powder ones. Yamagata, and I'll do an 1/8 teaspoon of the rose red probably, because it's half the amount. 14 karat, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. All right, so we're running low on the 14 karat. Don't worry, we got another one. I stocked up. I think so anyway. Uh-oh. Yeah, pretty sure. Oh no. Am I out of 14 karat? There must be one in here. Must be one. Ah, there it is. Don't worry, guys. Oh man, that would have ruined the whole thing. Michael would have been like, I'm out of here. Hate this show. These things, these flakes though, oh my God, they get everywhere. Macro, pearl, 14 karat. You will have glitter all over you. Okay, so I'm going to kind of consolidate these two buckets. All right, so I got a little teaspoon thing, and you can do it however you want. If you got a little popsicle stick and you're good with that, do that. So we'll do that. Okay. Especially in like dry climates, I think that's one of my problems. Oh, drop the lid. It's so dry here all the time that the static electricity is terrible in my shop, like everywhere. And so like these little glitter things just go everywhere. I mean, even if it's humid, it's probably still going to do that, but it's even worse. You can see it like statically cling to everything. It's so crazy. Oops. I need to do something to that later. I like these little, I finally found these little circle sticker things, and that way, what I hate is the eye candy. You don't know what it is, and I look at all of my stuff is in the thing from the top. So I went and bought little stickers so I can write on there. But this one had this new lid had like a better seal thing in the lid, so I usually just take the old lid and put it on the new one, but it was missing a seal thing. And you're better off having that little seal. Geez, I'm almost out of Yamagata too. Pretty sure I got another one of those though. Somewhere. Oh man. Oh, that's what I'm gonna get some more of those ghosts. Okay. I think this. Uh-oh. I think we got enough Yamagata for this, but. Huh. Really? All right, I guess we don't have any more. We got a half teaspoon though. I got a big order. End of the year, spend some expenses for the business coming up with Turner's Warehouse. So I'm just gonna have to add that. So Jim has, where did I find those? I just got them on Amazon. And I even ended up getting like I think the ones that I bought were like a 2-inch. I think they're like there's different ones. They're not stickers. Like if you bought like if you bought a thing called a sticker, I think that costs a lot. These are just like I think for like label machines, and they were like super cheap. It's like a roll of them. So I got a 1-inch one because Eye Candy has smaller. You know, they've got like the small ones, and so the 2-inch doesn't fit on there. So I bought some like, I think these are like 1.5 or whatever. Let's measure these. Yeah, like I bought some 1.5-inch ones, and they work for some of the smaller jars. And I have other ones that are a little bit smaller. And then I think the big ones, I'm pretty sure they're 2-inch. Yeah, 2-inch. And so, like I said, it's just a roll of like, I think they call them like a label circle. I don't even know how I found them. Search for like circle labels, roll, circle, and label in Amazon, and I think you'll find them. Okay, so we got our 14. Oh, okay, so keep myself. Let's get the stuff back where it's supposed to go. Okay. So we got some antique copper. Get in there. These are going to be interesting. I like these colors. We got some turquoise. I like to wipe the stick off the spoon. I don't want to mix colors. Turquoise. Let's see, is there any other? Let's see, make sure I'm not missing any questions. So Darren's asking, is Lumilite white hard enough for bespoke? Yeah, I had some customers that used them. It turns great. I quit. I mean, the problem is I don't recommend, and people, I swear everybody kind of side eyes me on this. I don't recommend you use it. You're not going to like it. It sucks, honestly. It is absolutely horrid to work with. You literally, I'm not making like grandiose claims. You have 2 minutes of working time, and it's water thin, which means you can't pour it vertically. It just doesn't work. It's got a lot of problems, but it does have some advantages. It only needs to, like, literally you can pull it out of the pressure pot in like 15 minutes, like honestly probably 12. That's like the what do they call it, the demold time on it. So so you can turn over. So that was one of the nice things. I could turn over pressure pots very, very, very fast. But, you know, you can only pour so much of it. You can, you know, I was only able to make like 6. You can maybe stretch it to like 8 blanks or 10, but 6 I found was good, and I had to pour them in bricks, you know. And then, you know, if you're adding color, the problem is because the resin turns white. If you're trying to get a specific color, number one, you have to add a ton of that dye, the transparent dye, any color dye. You cannot use mica powders; they don't work at all because it's opaque. So throw those out completely. You have to use either a transparent. You can use the like, you know, mine or like Divine or Eye Candy's liquid pigment stuff. You can, but you got to put a ton of it in there to overshadow or whatever the white. But then the thing is, if you're going for a certain color, you have to account for the fact that the resin's white. That factors into your like color decisions, and that's why it was so hard to make the team colors, because it'd be like basically starting with a giant cup of white and then having to add dye, and that's why you had to add a ton of it. People would add a few drops and it just comes out like super, you know, pastel. You have to put a ton in there if you want vibrant colors. So, and then the other advantages to it though is it's softer, so it turns like butter. Like you can just rail through it on the lathe. Doesn't chip at all. When people tell me, like I had a few people, like this hasn't happened that many times in 15 or whatever years I've been making them. But I have had a couple people tell me that it chipped or it was chippy, and I'm like, you're not turning right. There's no way to chip it. It's not brittle, it's soft. So it's great. It turns really nice, but being a little bit softer, it didn't polish as well as clear resin. But for tapping threads, it actually is pretty good. It's like kind of a sweet spot. It's a little bit soft, but it holds threads pretty well. So, I mean, if you want to try it out, go for it. I just think everybody that ever tried it just absolutely hated it. I mean, and I'm talking people that were like very good at resin casting in the past. I helped a few people, and after like 30 days of them like just beating their head against the wall, they just said, I'm done. And I'm like, it took me 2 years probably to figure out how to actually get results with that stuff. So, okay, so let's scroll down. Is there any other? Yeah, I don't like having jars on the side. Then it messes it all up. Let's see. Yeah, you can definitely make bespoke pens with my the square team color blanks. They work pretty good. Again, and I really, there's not a problem polishing it. I think the big thing with that resin, it's a little softer, and I think people get really, if you sand with the same pressure that you would do with like Alumilite Clear or you know, other harder resins, it sands off really quick. And what ends up happening is you tend to, like, the paper clogs up more because it's softer. So you really have to have a kind of a light touch, definitely water. I mean, just you really need to use water as a lubricant when you're sanding, but you need to use kind of a light touch because it'll sand a lot faster. Basically, you'll take off more material quicker. But really stay away from clogging the paper, because if you do that, then you just burnish scratches into it and it'll never polish. So light touch when you're sanding, you can sand pretty quick. You know, through each grit because it is a little bit softer. But you definitely, that final touch, because some people would actually put a CA finish on. It'll get glossier. Man, that's a lot of work. You know, if you just do the sanding really well and polishing, you should be fine. And especially if you use, like those really worked well with Magic Juice. But if you're not a Magic Juice person, grab some, you know, like if you do buffing, definitely grab some ring bling, or something else that's like a super high gloss, you know, polish kind of thing. That's what ring bling is. It'd be like the same as like number 6 in the Magic Juice, you know, like, so a super fine grit, basically almost like a scratch remover. But this stuff, ring bling as well as the number 6 in the Magic Juice, it also cleans the surface a little bit, I think. And so it'll give you that really nice final polish. So just hit it with something at the end that's like a really high, you know, like a scratch or swirl remover type of a polish. and it really brings out, you can get them nice and glossy at that point. So anyway, sorry, talking about pen blanks. So we're gonna go with, let's go back to the, I'm taking forever to get this going, sorry guys. So we got blue goes in there, and then we got our pink there, and then we got a 1/4 teaspoon of this rose red. Okay, so we got our cups ready, finally. I'll just quit talking and focus on the resin from here on out. But if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'll just try to keep my brain straight for a second here. Okay, so I'm going to get like I said, I'm going to use a separate cup, do a separate mixing cup. And I need 285, so I'm going to, I want to end up with about 560 grams. So I'm going to add a little extra just because some of it's going to get, stuck in the cup. So I added about 10 more grams just to make sure I got enough to get it out of the cup into these guys and have enough resin. So 285. Oh, I went over. That's okay. Not a huge deal going over. I'd rather be over than under. So 288. I'm using clear slow. And I typically just go a little bit over with the B side of this, and only this resin, not any other resin ever. Clear slow. I don't know. It works fine. It's not gonna harm anything with the mixture ratio with this resin. You do not want to do that with other resins. It's safe to do. I mean, you can go probably like a good % over with the B and still get good results. The reason I do that is the slow was initially, so way back in the day, all they had was clear alumilide. So there's a difference between this clear and clear slow, okay? Clear slow has a longer working time, but the other thing that it does is you can pour gigantic buckets of it all at once and it's fine. It doesn't overheat and crack and do all this stuff. The clear will crack and do all that. There's a limit to how thick you can pour it, basically. And pretty much every other resin. There are special resins out there, but like the typical ones that people are using out there can only be poured up to like, an inch, maybe two, like thickness. You can't pour a bowling ball worth of resin with most resins. So the clear slow that's why it was developed, was to pour giant bowl blanks, basically, all at once, throw it in the pressure pot, and you're good to go, not having to do multiple layers and all that. The issue with that is it's because it doesn't generate as much heat during the curing process in the pressure pot. If you pour a very small amount of it, it'll still cure, but what the problem is with really thin amounts of it, it can blush, they call it, and it gets like kind of milky white. And one thing that can kind of help with that is adding a little extra part B. So that's where that came from. In this case, we're pouring so much resin, it doesn't really matter, but I just still stuck to like, I add a little extra part B when I'm using slow. Doesn't hurt anything. Just to give you a reason why. And that's why it's only with this resin. You don't want to be messing around with the mix ratio on any other resin unless there's a good reason for it. Definitely not with epoxies. You want those things to be good. So I'm gonna measure out 90 grams, 93 or so on this one, and I'm just gonna wing the rest of these. All right, so that's like 96. That's fine. Just to give myself a visual cue of how much resin needs to go in each one of these. That might be too much. Do a little less in there. A little bit more there. There, and then all right, so that's probably pretty good. You're going to be a little red heavy. Let's see here. I'm going to scrape a little bit and just try and get a little bit more in here. Okay, so we got our cups ready. Boom, 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 boom. And then I'm going to go with, I made some little guys for these smaller cups. I really like having a flat stir stick. I really feel like you can get more of the bottom of the cup scraped rather than having like this round thing. You're only scraping the bottom of the cup with like a little tiny point, you know. Give me a flat square one. I'm going to put 0.5 and I want to kind of look at this. Really don't know how much that is, but that was just kind of an arbitrary number. But you can see it's a pretty dark blue, but once you thin it down, once you turn it, like especially if you're going to do a, well, either way, even if you're doing a kitless pen, but with the kits, with the tubes, you know, you're turning that material down pretty far. So once again, this is one of those things where you want to pull it out and kind of look on the stick. That'll give you a better indication than what's in the cup, because this is like an inch or inch and a half thick. That's not what the pen is going to look like. So if you pull it out and kind of look, that's a pretty deep blue. And that's why I really like their transparent colors. They can add a lot to a blank. But it is dark enough, and I think I'm going to add a little bit more, just a little bit. We already added 0.5. Let's go up to 0.8 and see how that looks. So adding another 0.3. I just want to kind of look. I don't think it's going to change it significantly, but I do think it is going to darken it just a tad. And I think you probably aren't going to see through to the tube. You know, and we're going to be pouring it with a bunch of other colors, so it shouldn't affect the transparency or anything. Now, I have a feeling that this is actually going to kind of take over the pink a little bit, the solid. So what I'm actually going to do is we're going to do a little less of the solid color pink. I don't know. I kind of feel like it's going to take over a bit. And with all these opaque liquid pigments, you always want to shake them. Make sure that I can't tell you how many times I've shaken a bottle and the thing was open. Make sure that you close it. Always try to get in the habit of just checking the top, close it down, then start shaking it. Otherwise, you've got dye everywhere and it will never go away. You put your hand down in it, you get it on your shirt, it's terrible. So always try to get in the habit of like close the thing, then shake. But you always want to shake these because they got these bigger chunks of color that tend to settle in the bottom. With the Alumilite dyes, the transparents, they don't settle. The particles are so small that everything stays in suspension pretty well. Now, their white, black, and fluorescents are not, they don't fall into that. It's all the transparent ones that I'm talking about. So for this pink, let's see here. I don't know how many grams we got, but I'm just going to wing it. I don't need to. I think that's probably good. 1 gram should be good enough. I mean, honestly, that should be like overboard, way overboard probably. And you could go for like a lot less and it'd be like kind of translucent. If you just put like a drop or two in there. All right, so I got to start mixing. I quit talking and start mixing. We got the blue ready. We got our turquoise. These are going to be pretty cool looking. Do you guys see these colors? Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah, I always like, the problem is I wouldn't even mention the part B thing. Like, it's just, you don't really need to do that usually. I just got in the habit of doing it. Like, way back in the day when they first introduced clear, slow, whatever, clear, slow. There were a few people getting issues with that, like blushing. And in most cases, like if you're adding a bunch of color, it doesn't matter. Like you're not going to see this blushing, this like kind of white haze. It doesn't affect anything if you're putting a bunch of mica powder in or whatever. Where the problem lies is on clear. That's it. And it, like I said, it cures fine. Does not affect the curing at all. You could pour a super thin thing and it's still going to cure fine. It just may take longer. But Alumilite's way of kind of counteracting that, and where it really hit was the people that were making the tube in, label blanks and stuff. Like, back in the day, we'd use these types of the P-Town things, and you'd put the tube in, and then you put like a label or whatever around it. That's a very small amount of resin, and people were using clear slow to do that. It's just not the best resin to choose to do label blanks. I wouldn't even recommend it, really. I think you're better off using something like liquid diamonds for that. But people were trying that, and they were getting blushing on these things. And if you get blushing in a clear blank like that, that's got like, like a label blank, it's ruined. Like it's done. So their thing was, well, in some cases, maybe if you added too much part A to your mixture, if you weren't measuring very well, that could cause that. But I think what the problem was people were trying to pour very small amounts, and it just doesn't generate as much heat as, it kind of requires a bigger amount of it to help generate. The more resin you've got clumped all into a ball, the hotter it's going to get. A very tiny, like a little marble amount, that's not going to generate as much heat as a bowling ball amount of resin. And so it just doesn't do well with those. If you're doing clear, small things, I wouldn't use it. It's not what it's made for. And so it was interesting that Alumilite kind of said, well, you can add more part B and that should help reduce it. And so anytime I was doing anything with clear and it was like going to be a kind of, there was clear or transparent parts, I would just, I don't know, I just started doing it for everything. I don't think it's typically necessary though. If you're going to be off, I guess this was the thing, and that's why I don't even add that much. You could add significantly more than I do. I just always end up with more B than A, just to make sure, it ain't going to hurt anything at all. Maybe I post my Instagram. Yeah, I don't think that it'll let you put a link though. You can just put your screen name on Instagram and that'll work. Only mods can post links just to keep all the riffraff. And I'm not talking about the Turner's Warehouse riffraff. I'm talking about the real riffraff out of the picture. Okay, so we're at about 93, 94. Probably going to start pouring here. So I'm going to we're going to do our dirty pour now. I'm just going to pour those together. That should be kind of an interesting look. So that'll kind of, when I pour this, it'll come out and be kind of this thing. You can even give it like just a little swirl. That helps sometimes. But I think I'm going to pour at around like 95. I'm going to start pouring. It should be plenty. That one's at 100, so let's go. I'm going to do gold next to the red. And, when you're doing these many colors, there's lots of different ways that you can do this. You could go for, oh, that's the red. We already did the red. Let's do the copper. You could do it where you basically empty like half the color, like you're not doing multiple colors the whole way through. You could just kind of dump, like the pink, red, and gold all down in the bottom half. and then, you know, do different on the top half, or, you know, so there's lots of different like ways that you could do this. Let's say, did we do the blue yet? Or you could just totally wing it and not even think about it, which I think I kind of favor sometimes. Like, whatever, it's going to be what it is. Did we do the gold yet? We're going to empty the gold out. There we go. Get a little bit of turquoise going. And just to let everybody know, I never get these things even. the more holes there are in the blank, or in the mold, the less equal it ends up being. For me, anyway. So if you're different, if you somehow can get these things poured equally, that can be useful, I will say. Let's do a little copper. But if you don't get it even, like, who cares? You know, really, it's not gonna affect anything. And I like to really overfill my molds. There we go. So let's do this pink thing in the faux burl mold. So I don't know if you guys can see. I'm going to kind of hold that up. Hopefully you can see how it's like different kind of shades going on. It's kind of going to be an interesting, that turned out to be a pretty good mixture. I really like that. I think, I don't know, the rest of them are good, but look at that. Woo! That's wild. All right, so the first one, we're going to dump this guy into the big pressure pot. Okay. That's going in the 5-galloner. Because I like using the 5-gallon pot a lot less, so since this is going to be in here quite a while today, I'd rather put it in the 5-gallon. So I wouldn't be using it anyway. Ow. Got my thumb pinched in there. Jeez. Learn how to use a pressure pot. And I like to, when I'm doing, so I don't know if you guys can see. Maybe. I don't know. I like to screw down 2 different sides at the same time. That way you're trying to get the lid tightened evenly. If you kind of go around in a circle sometimes, and there are people that just do one at a time in a circle and somehow manage to have their lid seal still. But what ends up happening is if you crank down like one, you're basically kind of like making the lid do this kind of thing, and it may cause like a seal issue. May not seal as well. So you're kind of better. It's kind of like putting on a tire. Like you kind of want to, you know, do it kind of evenly. But in this case, you can do 2 at a time. So you're kind of cinching it down. And I don't tighten the heck out of them on the first round. I just get them cinched and then go to the other 2 and cinch that about equally, and then do another round and just make sure everything's good. It just can help. Sometimes those lid gaskets, if the lid gets kind of wonky, that gasket won't seal as well and you'll have a leak, which sucks. But that, you know, going back to choosing resins, one thing that I personally like about, you know, Alumilite Clear, but basically urethanes, resins that don't require being in the pressure pot for like super long amounts of hours. So like some epoxies, you know, they may be like an 8 to 12, sometimes a 24-hour requirement of staying in the pressure pot because they don't fully harden for, you know, many hours. And the problem with that, if you've got a leak on your pressure pot and it drops below 40 psi in like 8 hours, that's a problem. Bubbles may start creeping back into your resin. So that's one of the reasons why I really like Clear Slow. within an hour, bubbles are not coming back. Like they're hardened up enough to where you don't have to worry about if your pressure pot's leaking or not. So it does give you a little bit of an out on how well you've sealed everything up on your pressure pot. One way around that is you can just, I don't really advocate this personally because it can create a safety issue. There's more risk involved, let's just say. You can just leave your air hose attached. You'll notice I always take, fill it to full, and then I take, lock it down and then take the air hose off. What you can do, if you've got a leaky pot and you got to make sure that it's good for like 8 or 10 hours, you can leave it attached with your, with the thing open to where it's constantly adding more pressure. Like if it did drop, if it's leaking, it's refilling the whole time, right? The only issue is if for some reason, number one, if you don't have the regulator set, that is not a good idea. You got to have the regulator set either on your compressor, that's at whatever your pressure pot limit is. In this case, it'd be 70 psi. In the CA or California, that'd be 60 psi. So you'd either have to set your compressor to 60 psi so it doesn't go over that ever, or you'd have to have a regulator on your thing. But if any safety things fail, you've got air pushing into your pot, which could cause, it's just a little bit more risk. If I stop at 70 on this thing, it's never going above that. The only way it can go is down, which also has its drawbacks, so I always try to take it off. The best way to go is keep all the safety stuff on, regulators, and never remove the safety valves off your pressure pots. That's just asking for trouble. But keep all that stuff on there and try to get your pot as sealed as possible. There's ways. I even have a video on how to find and fix leaks in your pressure pot. I always kind of forget about that video, but it's a banger, guys. It will help. If you got leaks, it should help because there's lots of different places that and some are crazy. I'm gonna make it like you got to go watch this because I had one pot where I could not find the leak to save my life, and what it turned out to be blew my mind. Okay, so make sure to go watch that video, especially if you're having issues with a leaky pressure pot, definitely watch that video. But there are some random things that could be happening that you probably would never guess where the leak is happening from. So try to get that locked down. It's usually not that hard to get all the plumbing fittings and all that stuff totally sealed up and all that. But you can get leaks on that seal on the inside, and there's ways to kind of help with that. It's always the best bet for safety. Keep everything safety related on the pot, and then keep it, pretty tight. Keep all this stuff. Don't let it be leaking a bunch of, air out, and you won't have to worry about that. All right, so let's see here. Hit the like button. Yeah, hit the like button. Like, where else could it be? I'm telling you, go watch the video. It's crazy. Yeah, and sometimes the blanks just completely disappear out of the pressure pot, and you're like, what is even going on right now? Aliens did it. It's always aliens, guys. Aliens came and abducted my pen blanks. We got to get Jamie to make a cartoon alien abduction of pen blanks. That would be hilarious. Oh my God. Little flying saucer, pen blanks floating up. He can do it, I think. I have faith. Did you guys see the little caricature thing that he made of me? That was pretty cool. I've never had one of those made of me. That's pretty neat. Okay, so I'm gonna get this sticky thing out of the way because I always tend to stick my hand in it, and then it's on my face, and then it's in my coffee. Let's see here. Blanks will do that, I know. Joseph, quick question. If I have a mold that is 1 inch by 1 inch by 6 inch, how do I find how much resin? There's a calculator thing on Alumilite's website. Light resin calculator. I'm going to give you a link to that. And it's pretty accurate. Typically, I usually still like to go a little higher than whatever that thing tells you. On square things, it's pretty good. On round things, sometimes, like, I don't know. I find that you need to add a little bit extra. But basically, that's one way. Excuse me. You can just make a calculation. They have like the whole thing. The other way to go is you can just dump like rice or something in there. This works really good for volume measurement resins. This is less awesome for weight based, for like Alumilite clear. So, you know, if you do that, the rice thing, because like there's also like really random shaped molds, like especially if you're making like props or something weird like that, jewelry. Who knows how much resin needs to go in this thing, right? So it's a good way to do things for really odd shaped, you know, weird, not just a sphere, not just a cylinder, not, you know, like not a normal geometric shape. It's all kind of weird. The rice thing really is good. You could use water. I'm not a huge fan of doing that. I just don't want water around my resin in any way. Then you got to dry it make sure it's dry. I don't like that. I'd rather just dump some rice in there. But the thing about the rice is, you know, then you can put it in a measuring cup, and for volume measurement resins, you're like, oh, it's, you know, this much volume. Easy. That's a little bit harder to do for weight-based ones, but you can kind of go back and convert that. Like if you look on your cup, and let's just say the rice goes up to like 200 milliliters, that line, you're probably going to be in the neighborhood of 200 grams. You can kind of just use those almost interchangeably. Again, I would just increase that just on the first round, the first time you do it. Maybe just say, okay, I'm just going to mix up 220 or 250 or something like that grams. Then what you can do is just weigh whatever, hopefully there's excess. You're much better having excess resin than shorting a mold, because then you got to pour another thing on there later, which doesn't necessarily work as well. But so if you've got excess, then just put your mixing cup on the, you know, try to keep it like zeroed to the cup itself, and or use a cup that you can just kind of, you know, weigh. Don't use a very unique cup. Use something that you could just like, okay, zero it out with another one. Put that cup with the excess in there, and then you'll know how much over you were, right? So sometimes you got to just kind of waste a little bit of resin. You can estimate it pretty well with the rice method or the calculator, but I still recommend going a little over on that first time you use it. Then, you know, just see how much is left over, weigh it, and then you can dial it in for the second one. Chat GPT. Yeah, I don't trust that. Jamie is awesome with all that. It's not even techie. It's really like the artsy stuff. Artsy techie. So yeah, I think he did pretty good. I was like, when I first saw it, because I actually, like I said, I had to go leave in the middle of the thing and help Gretchen do some stuff, and then I came back and I came back in. I paused the live thing so I could just kind of restart it, and it was, I saw this picture and I was like, oh, that guy looks pretty nice. Who's that? That's a handsome gentleman. Who did he model? I was like, oh, that's me. Okay, so for the second round, all right, guys, I'm pretty excited about this. We're going to make some Christmas blanks. We're going to go red, white, and green. And then this time what I want to do is I've got some red. I'm going to do red and green. Oh, I got a nice green here. I've got red and green, all right? And what I want to do is just add some macro sparkle to this, all right? So we're going to make it kind of a, not pearly, but like you could do pearls too. You could add like a good one for, if you wanted, so okay. We're going to add macro sparkle. That's going to make it like that glittery, sparkly kind of color. The other way to go, if you're looking to, if you want like a solid, you're going to use a liquid solid, you know, the opaque dyes. If you want pearl, because this is really not going to make it pearly, the macro. If you want to go for pearl, I would recommend using either, yeah, I'm just going to say this because I think it's better. The Shide, whatever name this is from Eye Candy. This you can add now. You got to account for the fact that you're adding a white color into your dye, so it's going to probably bring, like, lighten it just a little bit. So just be aware of that. It's going to slightly change the color itself. You don't want to add a ton of this, you know, the opaque pigment. You want to, sometimes it's, you're going to need to kind of like thread the needle a little bit on it. I would say for most of the liquid pigments, you could probably go for, well, for mine, if you're using, so we did all those experiments. So the navy blue and the army green, they're like on the more translucent side. They have less white basically in them. But for your other colors that seem, and you can usually kind of spot these things. So the coral and watermelon are a little bit more on the opaque side, and then the robin egg or chicken egg blue, this has a lot of white in it. So it's like you don't need as much. White is the most opaque pigment. So if there's a lot of white in something, if it's a very light color, that probably means that it's got a lot of white in it. And so for like divine pigments or for mine or things like this, the lighter the color is, usually there's more white, which means it's going to be more opaque, just because of the titanium dioxide is more opaque. So for those ones, you want to put just a very, very small amount in. You can kind of, and you'll just have to add a few, you know, drop by drop and kind of see how transparent it is. For these other ones, for the ones that are more translucent, have less white, darker colors usually, tend to be like that. Yellow. I hate yellow. Yellow is very transparent in any medium, any liquid pigment. Those ones you'll probably want to add a little bit more. So again, this is going to be one of those things where you really want to kind of experiment, see how much, put some amount in and then check it with the stick and then, you know, adjust from there. But, you know, if you put too much in, you can't take it out, right? So you sneak up on it kind of thing. But you can put quite a bit in. You don't want it to be like see-through. It's just you don't want to put like 6% dye in there, and that's not going to work. So I would recommend, if you kind of know that it's one of the more translucent ones, I'd probably say 1% is probably a good number to look at. If you're going for, you know, chicken egg blue, something that's very opaque, I would probably drop that down. I mean, 0.5% might even be that might even be a little higher to start with than you want. 0.5% is probably not a bad place to start. You're still probably going to be able to get enough pearl in there and not mess things up, but it's still going to be, you know, that whatever that color is, opaque. Let's see here, making sure I'm not missing anything. Artsy techie, Tim. Yeah, write it on the mold or in your notes, one of the two. So yeah, the first time's always, maybe even the second, you might still be kind of adjusting, but like after like the first or second time, like you got it, and just make sure that you know, write that down somewhere. That way you don't have to do that every single time. Most of these, I mean, just to throw it out. So I've got a 1-inch, this is a 5x6 by 1, 540 grams, 550 maybe. That's where you're going to be on something like that size. A lot of the P-Town subby molds tell you, my Gatling molds, I figured out like a good estimation. But typically if it's like a 5 1/4 tall, round, and like 3/4 inch, you can probably estimate about 45 grams per tube for these guys. Something like that, 45 to 50 at the most. You're going to have leftovers if you estimate 50. So 45 is probably good. For the tall boys, I forget. He's got that listed. I can't remember what the tall boys are. Probably like 90, maybe 75 grams per. But you can look that up on the P-Town Subby website if you're doing those ones. If you've got my Gatling mold, I've got that listed on my website. 3/4 inch PVC pipes, depending on the length, by like 6, you're probably looking at like $50 to $60, something like that. So just to give you a couple like rule of thumb things, like where to start. But like I said, I use the volume calculator thing, and it works pretty good. I just estimate a little higher because I don't really want to mess with rice. Actually, here's a tip, guys. The rice thing. So I went out, somebody showed me that, and I was like, oh, that's a great idea, because I was actually using like really weird molds right at this one time. I was like copying weird things and then throwing it in the resin. So I went out and bought some rice, and then I left the rice like just in the like bag and just kind of rolled it up and just kind of stuck it on the shelf in my shop. Don't do that. Don't leave rice open in your garage. You will get mice for sure. And they will get into it, they will eat it, and you're going to be not happy. So if you do go get rice, and I would recommend, if you're dumping it in the mold and doing all that stuff, don't bring it back in the house and stick it in the rice cooker. So this is going to be for molds only. Get a plastic sealed thing if you're going to leave it out in the shop, okay? Just a little tip. So, all right, so let's do the second one. So we got, like I said, I got a red, I got a green, we got macro, and like I said, if you wanted to go for pearl, this is a really good one. This is honestly, if you're going for like a pearl color, this is one of the best ever. Shied, shitty, whatever it is. Good one, very good one. In fact, that's on my Turner's Warehouse list as well, because they carry it there. Yeah, I was kind of bummed. I just placed an eye candy order. I didn't realize you could use Jake's code in addition to the Black Friday thing. I'm like, oh, I just placed an order yesterday. And then I'm going to go for, I think I'm going to go for, we're going to go for a mix of the Shied and macro for the white. Sometimes the white can kind of make things bleed a little bit depending on certain colors and certain pigments. So sometimes it's, you might want to, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit to this, but rather than just have a lot of the dye. What I like is if you mix, and you could use the Divine, like I don't sell just the white or whatever, but you could use the Alumilite white dye, there's stuff. I like the Divine Pigments white because it's more, it's stronger. Basically, like you can use less and get the same amount of white. I would say that it's like whiter also. So that's basically what this is, the same type of thing. But I like to add just a little bit in with this, like and this would, another equivalent would be like a micro pearl. You may see that's, in different brands. It's pretty much the same thing. But that added just a little bit and it'll get it really, really nice bright white. If you add just a little bit, like a drop or two of this stuff. But the other issue with the white opaque dyes, it's really heavy. Like if you buy a bottle of, and I have Divine somewhere. If you, whatever. So, we got two different things here. This is red, this is white. If I put an equal amount of each of these in here, this would be like 5 times as heavy, the white. And you'll know, like it's significantly heavier. So just be aware of that. That can kind of, you can use it to your advantage sometimes, but it tends to sink more. So I like to sparingly use that if I can get away with it. If I don't have to use a lot. Yeah, but that's true. But I don't know. I think that you're probably fine putting it into a sealed container. If you don't already have a mice problem, probably going to be okay to just put it in a tub that's sealed, some sort of plastic tub. you know, like a, whatever, like a, you know, and I'm talking like a sealed one, not just like a leftover tub thing. But yeah, just be aware of that. If you're leaving food in the garage, our little furry friends may come in and help themselves to it. Okay, so number 2, 5 color, and then the number 2 is Christmas colors with macro. All right, so again, we're going to be doing, this time I don't need as much to start, really. So I'm just going to mix up 540 grams to, 270. I still add a little bit of extra for the mixing cup. Actually, in this case, I can use the mixing cup itself. That'll be fine. What you know, on that last one, I'm dumping out, like we didn't have much resin in there. I mean, even the bigger cups were like 90 grams. I don't really like using the mixing cup because I could have used the mixing cup and added dye or, you know, something to it. But the problem is this big mixing cup is going to leave a lot of that resin, a lot more resin on the side walls of it than a smaller cup, right? The other thing is it's going to heat up at a different rate because it's all like spread out. So I'd rather use a smaller cup if I'm using smaller amounts of resin. I don't like using just a giant cup and putting 30 grams of resin in there. It's going to be way lower temperature and thinner viscosity when you pour it. So that's why I do that. In this case, we're going to divide it by 3 basically, and we'll be fine. Using that bigger cup, I think it's not going to be as big of a deal. So I'm just going to mix up 270 times 2. And then we're going to do 180 of each. We're doing red, green, and white. We're going to do a red is just like my red, whatever. I'm going to add 3.5%. Let's see, no, we're going to add macro. We're going to go, I'm going to see what 2% looks like. Green, same thing, probably 2% or so. And that's the Kelly green. And then for the white, we're going to do a macro / they really need to change that name, shied mix. And we're going to do, let's see, 180. We're going to do a ½ teaspoon of each. Plus, I'm going to add a little bit of this dye to it. I'm going to go for, I don't know, probably a few drops. Let's see. I just want to see, that's 1. I'm going to do like 0.5 grams. That should be plenty. I could maybe get away with less even. But then for the green and red, we're also going to add, let's see, 180. Actually, I'm going to do ½ teaspoon. I'm going to do a ½ teaspoon of the shied. Macro is going to be 1 teaspoon though. And then 180, yeah, plus 1 teaspoon macro. So basically I'm putting a teaspoon of macro in each cup, and then I'm going to add a ½ teaspoon of the shied, and then I'm going to add 0.5 grams of the white dye. And then let's see, 2% of 180 is going to be 3.2, I believe. 3.6, I mean. 3.6 grams. 3.6 grams of red and green dye. Okay. So we got all our stuff here. We can do 16-ounce cups. And I think we're ready to rock and roll, guys. Red and green. I think I will. I'm just going to knock out the macro sparkle in these two right now. Another thing that I will mention. So I was telling you that I don't typically like to dump the dyes in the bottom of my cup. And this, definitely in these cups, these are the ones that I definitely don't want to do it in because of the little ridges in the bottom of the cups. So I don't typically do that. But another thing that can happen, another reason why I might, and it just kind of depends. But one thing that can happen with some of these liquid dyes is different colors may affect the resin, like how fast it heats up or not. I typically find black dyes slow down. Like if you put black dye, and it depends on how much dye you're putting in some factors, but if you had just, you know, a mica powder in one cup and you put black dye in the other, this one's going to heat up slower than the pearl stuff. And like certain other colors may heat up faster or slower. So the thing is, these liquid pigments, they've got some sort of resin in them. That's what makes them liquid. Otherwise, it's just dry pigments. It's just particles. And it has whatever the liquid stuff is can, you know, react a little bit with the resin. It can have an effect on it. So you know, first off, always make sure that you're buying, you know, whatever they are, whatever the pigments are, they're made to be used in resin. But regardless, they could have slight effects on the resin, how it kind of heats up and all that stuff. So that's another reason why I don't really like putting dyes in the cup first and then pouring the stuff on. I'd rather do it later because it closes the gap of how long that's interacting with the resin in the cup. Yeah, if you got cats, you're good to go. You probably don't have mice. That's a good point. 270. I don't know if I told you guys, but I had a rat in my truck. It decided to make a home in my truck, and that was great. Chewing wires, and still haven't gotten my truck back from the shop. But the good news is I don't think the damage was as extensive as it definitely could have been. I don't know yet, though. I haven't gotten the truck back. We'll see when it's all said and done. Not a big fan of rats, I'm going to be honest. So when I was talking about I was saying that I probably wouldn't even mention the fact that I add a little extra part B sometimes, you know, with this specific resin when we were talking about that. The problem is you guys can see the numbers, and people would always point it out, I think. So if you couldn't see the numbers on the scale, I wouldn't even mention it. Because it does get confusing. Like you really got to watch what you're saying to people, depending on how much of the thing that they caught or, you know, whatever, in videos or online, because they may not understand why, or just say, oh, you know, this guy said, you know, add more part B, which may not even be the the right thing. You know, like resins, many of the resins out there, you know, the part A is the resin side, whereas the B is the hardener, but that's not always the case. Smooth on, they're opposite. So like A and B have no meaning in the resin world, really, unless you're talking, you know, that you're talking about a very specific, you know, formula of resin. So I don't like having to confuse people, but I think that they would be confused if they saw me always messing the thing up, when I always advocate for, you know, making sure that your measurements are very accurate. Luckily in this case, like I said, I wouldn't go way over. I usually, worst case scenario, I usually go like maybe a gram over. That's it. That's not going to make a difference in 540 grams. That's not going to do anything. But if you went way over, not good. Am I going to be making more colors? Yep, I had a pack rat. Big sucker too. I mean, pretty big. So Joseph was asking, am I going to be making more colors? Are you talking about like the dyes, like the Color Lab pigments? If that's probably what you mean. I don't know. Probably not. Not for a while at least. I still haven't broken even on the first colors, and that was the thing. I was like, okay, well, if I break even, and you know, a lot of that has to do with I haven't really been like marketing them at all, really. But I was gonna come out with a full line of the like basics. The problem is I can't just keep coming out. I kind of approached this the wrong way. What would have been a little bit smarter for me to do would be to come out with a line of the basic colors and then share recipes, because I can't just keep coming out with different recipes, specific recipes. It just doesn't work. There's not enough demand. Not everybody needs this color or that color, you know. It would have been smarter to come out with a line and then have people be able to make their own colors. Because the bottling, the labels and all that stuff, and really it would have been smarter for me to just come out with one size and that's it. So I made some mistakes, and it ended up taking a lot of time and costing a lot of money. So at this point, I'm just kind of doing my own thing with the colors. Someday maybe we'll see. We'll see if things, you know, like I said, if I can break even on the existing pigments that I've made sales, then I may decide to expand. I'm going to add 3.6, and this is where things do actually come into play with how much you're adding and recording that and sticking to it. Because if you're just willy-nilly like, oh, that looks good, in this case, because I'm trying to get a specific effect with the macro sparkle, how much I put in there can affect the way that the blanks look in the end. So if you have no clue how much you put in there and you're kind of thumbing it, you can't make an adjustment, really. There's no adjustment that you could make down the road that's gonna get it better than what you wanted, or, you know, whatever. The consistency, or to make minor adjustments, you need to record how much you put in there in this case. Most of the time, it doesn't really matter how much you put in when you're dealing with opaque pigments. If that's all that's going in there, you just need to make sure that you put enough in, you know, if you're going for opaque. But if you're going for a very specific look with that, like a slightly translucent, then you really do need to like know what percentage, how much did I put in there. Let's see here. So we need a teaspoon of the macro. I need more macro for sure. I've been using macro like it's like going extinct or something around here lately. I love this stuff. It's so much fun, especially in the winter. It totally just makes it look like snow. So speaking of snow and macro, I didn't even mention this yet, guys, but the candy cane blanks are up on the website, and they do include macro sparkle in the white. Very fun. So these guys are available if you want to get a candy cane pen blank, although I got to be honest at this point, Turner's Warehouse just completely whooped my ass on candy cane blanks. Theirs looks so good. I like mine too, but man, that's what you get when you have somebody on the payroll whose job it is to just do 3D printing. I don't have that luxury, so mine are pretty close. Pretty good looking. But definitely check out the Turner's Warehouse ones because they are good. They're a little different. Mine are a little different than theirs. Let's see, how much? Half teaspoon. So the Shide, it's a very fine. I mean, it looks like powdered sugar. Like, you know, it doesn't really look like a pearl. But it gets you a really good pearly, you know, like that, like pearls, like a pearl necklace, you know, like the pearls, you know, the white That's the kind of pearl you're getting with the Shide. So we'll mix those two guys together. The one thing to keep in mind though, that Shide, or if you find, you know, micro pearl is another one that's basically the same thing. They're usually kind of clumpy because it's so fine. It tends to be a little bit clumpier. But that's actually the reason I like the eye candy version. It is not as clumpy as some of the other ones out there that are like the same type of micro pearl. That's some of that stuff. I mean, you can sit there and keep mixing it and mixing it and mixing it, and then you still get these clumps, which you don't want in your resin, you know. Okay, so we're gonna add just a little bit. Let's see, half a gram, 0.5 grams of this white. And like I said, I like it because it makes it even more white. Like I don't know how to explain that, but I think you'll be able to see in the cup. So, you know, this is what we got now. It's like a little bit milky, right? You add a little bit of that white opaque dye and it just makes it even more white, basically. Less kind of that milky kind of color, more white. Like a lighter, more vibrant white. Okay, so we got that. Let's see how these guys look. I'm very excited to see how these ones look. I've never done this before, I don't think. Definitely not with these specific colors. Whoa, what do you think of that? Oh man, I love it. I love that. What do you guys think of that? It's almost like kind of a metallic look type thing. I'm digging that. That's exactly what I was hoping for. I mean, this just looks like Christmas to me. And I think it's dark enough. I added 2%. I think that's going to be like opaque enough. The red can be kind of transparent, but the more opaque dye that you add to this mixture, the less sparkly it's going to be. You know, like the more opacity you put in this thing, the less the sparkles are going to work. So it's a fine line. Sometimes you may have to just go for, you know, a kind of a translucent look to get the exact look that you're going for, and just know that you're like, okay, I'm going to have to paint the tubes on this. You know, so that's another way. You can go for less of that like opaque dye, but you're going to have to paint the tubes for sure, kind of thing. It's just kind of a little bit of a sliding scale. And then again, if you're going for like bespoke blanks, you got all kinds of latitude, because it really doesn't matter if you can see through those. There's nothing that you have to do. All right, so we're there. We're at 95. I'm going to do white in the middle. I don't know if that matters. All right, we're just zooming. But you can see even on the top, oh man, that's Christmas to me. It's looking a little bit like Christmas. I think these are going to be pretty wicked. You know what I mean? I never get them even. And I like to overfill them. The reason I do that is because there's air in these blanks. There's a little bit of air in these blanks. And the minute I put it in the pressure pot, that air is going to go away, and the level is going to go down in these blanks. And so if you want to make sure, if you want to maximize, you know, how much blank you're getting out of your mold in these vertical ones, then you're going to have to kind of overfill, you know. And I'm just giving this a quick little stir here. Just with a straight stick. I find it the easiest, way to go. If you got a hook and all that stuff on the bottom, it can kind of change things. But it's going to be a little bit more of like a stretched swirl, like along the length. I find that if you've got a little bend in the stick in the bottom, then you can get a little bit more like of a swirl around, a little bit more, you know. But I just want to just a little bit of a mixture here, just to kind of add a little fun. I usually like that in most of the blanks. You can get a little bit blockier color if you don't do any swirling around and all that stuff. So just keep that in mind. All right, so it looks a little muddy. You know, once you don't be worried about the top after you use a stick like that. It looks like muddy and all that stuff. That's not what they're going to look like on the inside. It is a little unnerving. The first time you do that, you're like, oh my God, I just ruined everything. But it's okay. I mean, as long as you didn't like heavily like whip it, stir it up in there, you'll be fine. Okay, so I'm just going to clean off these sticks real quick. I don't know if we have a whole lot of extra to pour into the... Yeah, that's really not going to come out of there. I don't think I had much in these. Pretty thick. I think we're going to pass on the fun burl with these. Just going to be a gooey mess. Drop that in there. All right, guys, so we got two pretty cool looking things. So these are both going in the Pen Blank Club boxes, as you know. So we basically knocked out December's this month for the Pen Blank Club. So you got to see both of them. And that was part of the thing also. Like I said, the last few weeks, like I've had to just kind of come up with things and not do them on the stream, which is not how that's supposed to work, really. I want to be able to do most of them. Sometimes I like to do like a little, here's a little secret thing, but not like every week. So the schedule's just off. Like I need to be starting things for the next month earlier somehow. So hopefully this might have reset things just a little bit. But just to let everybody know who is in the pen blank club, there's these two, and then I always like to do something a little extra on Christmas. So there's going to be one extra blank that you don't know what it is yet. That'll be dropped in there. Hint, hint. If you're in the pen blank club, I might recommend not buying a candy cane blank. It'll just save you some money. I know, that kind of ruined the surprise, but I don't want people to waste money if they don't need to. So let's see here. Yeah, it's kind of fluorescent. It's not really fluorescent. I don't know. Bright green. I like to call that Kelly green. I enjoyed creating that color. That was one that I created. So let's see here. Is there anything that I'm missing, guys? Yeah, I just had a rat in my truck. It sucked. And I don't know what the deal is. Like, I'm pretty sure I caught it fairly quick, but it was living in my truck. Luckily, I got a check engine light came on, and I looked up the code. I have a code reader thing for my truck, and looked up the code, and on the first, like typing it in, like code Tacoma, blah blah, whatever. The first Google result was, you see, like I think it was on like Tacoma World or one of the forums. They're like, oh, the dreaded rodent code. I was like, oh man. So I go out there and there's a nest, and I'm like, oh man. So we dealt with it for a while. I didn't understand. Like, I've learned a lot about rats in cars over the thing. If you have a pack rat, the good news is if you can get rid of the rat, one of many different ways, if you can get it out of there, neutralized basically, there's only one rat per nest. So when I first saw that, I'm thinking like there's this rat, or I thought they were mice actually. I thought they were smaller. It was a pretty big rat. But I'm thinking like it's an infestation or something like that, and like I didn't understand what was going on with the situation. Basically, this thing was living in my truck and just hitching a ride everywhere that I went, never leaving it. So once I got it out of there, everything went back to normal, but it chewed up wires, and I don't know if one of the big things was I didn't know if it got into the AC system. It didn't seem like it did, but I'm like, I ain't turning that on. Like there's like a rat nest in there. I don't want to turn on my AC particularly. So I don't know how it works. It just didn't seem very healthy. But so luckily, I think everything's all right. But if you can get rid of the rat or the mice or whatever, if you can get rid of them, you're pretty good. The tough part about that is somehow you got to catch it. Really, you don't really want to poison it, because if it goes, it'll crawl back in there and die. So you got to catch it to get rid of the problem. Mice might be a little different than rats, but I had a pack rat. That's what it was. So not fun. It was not fun. And I have no clue how much damage it caused money-wise, but it's probably going to be, at least $1,000, which sucks. So let's see here. Oh, yeah, Mark had a pack rat. Yeah, pack rats. Yeah, this thing totally, it ate like a big length of wire, those things. What I found is they chew because like otherwise their teeth just keep growing. So they actually have to gnaw on things like metal things to file them down. Otherwise it would just grow out of control. So amused with the watermelon dye. Nice. Still thinner. What was Tim talking about? I asked Illuminate some time ago what was in the pigments, and the answer. Yeah, most of those things have some sort of a weird like solvent stuff. The thing is though, you can just add, like if you're going to be using your dyes with Illuminate clear, or like, if you're not going to be, well, and even if you're going with like some epoxies and things, like you can thin them by putting a little bit of part A, from like the clear slow. You can thin it by putting a little bit of that in there. It's not going to hurt anything. I do it all the time. Their fluorescents are the worst. I mean, these things, like if you're not going to use it within like a month, they go bad quick. Like, do not buy the big fluorescents because they're just they do not handle sitting on the shelf for a while. But I will add some of the little bit of Part A sometimes. I don't really have that much problem necessarily with their dyes, most of them. I mean, the white can get a little thick. The fluorescents are the worst. Those things are not fun. But definitely, like with divine pigments, you can do that. I do it. It'll work. It's not going to hurt anything as long as you don't go overboard and put like 50% in there. But if you just need to thin it out, you can add a little bit of the Part A and it should be okay. Yeah, I know they did a really good job of the candy cane. They're doing blockbuster stuff with their 3D printing. It's nice to have, and I was kind of talking to Chad about this. Like, the problem is I don't like doing the resin 3D printing. It sucks. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't enjoy it at all. Problems arise. I'm not a huge fan of like the 3D printing because things can go wrong. You're like, if you can get a really good printer, you have less problems. But the other issue is I'm not, a lot of the things that I make are not they're like odd. They're not exactly meant, the way that the 3D printers typically are used are not the way that I use them. So I'm kind of battling. It's like a little bit of an uphill battle anyway. And especially like for certain colors, like I have to dye those candy cane things, and it doesn't like that, and I don't love it. So like if I could just pay somebody else to do this stuff for me, it'd be great. I'll buy the little, doohickeys, and I want to do casting. I don't want to mess with this 3D printing stuff. So it's nice to have somebody that's their focus. Like they can get really good at it, but I don't have enough time to get really good at it consistently. I do runs, and it takes me forever to kind of like get everything set up and running right. I do a run, and then I'm like, I don't mess with it for months because I don't like it. Elf green, yes. Grinch green. It is kind of Grinch green. Oh, see, okay, I see. You like fluorescent green. Yeah, greens are good. I like green. Okay, so sorry, I'm just trying to read all the comments here. There's an engine code. Well, yeah, that's just what everybody calls it. What it was it was like some random sensor for like a cam height or something. I think it's like a knock sensor or something like that, or a ping sensor. So like the engine never did anything. Like there was nothing never noticeable. It was just a random sensor wire. That's why they call it the rodent. And it's also in the like top of the engine. It's just the wire that they go for all the time. And open the hood, and then there was a nest in Gretchen's car also, which there was only one rat, so I don't know why it needed two nests, but it was just rolling out the red carpet for itself. Mark, about the fluorescents, so using the Part A trick, you may be able to get them to come back around, but if they're 4 years old, I would chuck them and get new. The other issue is I think like most of their like transparent dyes, I mean, I don't think there's really a shelf life. I don't know. I think they're okay, most of them, but these fluorescent ones they're a totally different animal, even than the white and the black. I mean, you can smell them. They smell funny. They smell totally different than anything else. The fluorescents, I would highly recommend if you're going to use them, buy one when you need it, and then that's it. And like if it's like been on the shelf for like a year, probably just chuck it and get a new one the next time. That's the tough thing is you can't get it small enough, because I don't know how many I've just thrown away. But you can, like, if you get like if you go on Amazon, and remember we found these little metal sticks, if you can find something like this, you can actually get it in there and kind of manually like mix it up. Like it gets to the point where it's so hard that shaking it's doing nothing. And I don't know that there's enough Part A that you could add to it to the point where it would be thin enough to shake back into, existence. But if you can get something kind of hard, like a metal kind of stick, add a little bit of the Part A, you can kind of bring them back. So you may try it, but I got to be honest, 4 years, I'd throw it away, get a new one. These are probably a year old, and I should probably just chuck them. Like they're to the point where, nah. What can happen is I just wonder if they're not working to their total potential. I've never had any issues using kind of older stuff like that, but it may not, you may not be getting, what the problem in my head is, you may be getting like just only pigment or only the glycol ether, or like you're not getting a good mixture of the, what it should be in its prime, where it's not really right, kind of. That's my worry with it, but it could even cause like issues with curing in the worst case scenario. I don't know. I don't really think I don't know. I've had Divine pigments on the shelf for like many years, and I don't think that stuff really goes bad. You can again add a little bit of Part A if it gets a little bit thick on those, and it should be fine. So anyway, guys, so it should be pretty fun. I can't wait to see these two. I will definitely next week, I'll post video demolding them. Very excited to see how these things turn out, these Christmas ones. But I really can't wait to see how these 7 color blanks turned out. You guys always do so great. So thank you again for all the super chats, everybody that super chatted. I appreciate that. Great color choices. And again, don't forget, we got the Black Friday deals going on. We got the 50% off the resin casting ebook, the Beginner's Guide to Resin Casting, on my website. There's a link down in the description below for that. The discount code is half off, all one word. But if you click the link, it should automatically input that. And then for the rest of my website, 20% off all weekend. Sale ends Monday night at 11:59 p.m., right before midnight on Tuesday. So 20% off everything else. So the honeycomb, the glitter, the Color Lab pigments, if you need resurgence on those. And somebody asked if I'm going to expand the line, and I was kind of like, well, it's not really going that well. I'm not getting rid of what I have, so don't worry about that. If you need more of that stuff, it's not going away anytime soon. It's just adding more colors probably may not be coming for a while. And if I do add more colors, I'm probably just coming out with like the standard color line so that you guys can make your own colors. And then I always thought that would be kind of fun to do on the live stream also, is to like mix colors and come up with different recipes and show people how to do that. And from a marketing perspective, that makes sense. Like, it's harder to sell, like, do you need chicken egg blue? Maybe you don't like that color, right? So having a standard line of colors would have been a smarter way to do this. But so down the road, I may do that, but be looking for that. So everything else, though, like I said, there are a few Gatling molds still available if anybody really wants one. At this point, I really kind of recommend just getting the P-Town ones. They're cheaper, they work fine. The reason I made those Gatling molds was because I wanted a specific length. Well, I kind of switched gears on that, and I decided that there's a reason for 5 1/4 blanks, because they fit in a small flat rate box. So I actually, did a pivot on that. And so I don't even actually use my Gatling molds. They're good. They work great, but they're not necessary. I'm actually cutting them. I do use them sometimes, but I'm cutting them down. So if you need that, the problem is they're pretty expensive, but they are 20% off. I'm a terrible salesman for these things, but molds are on sale, pen blanks, everything, glitters, all that kind of good stuff on my website. So, and that code is BF, so like Black Friday 2025. And so I will see you guys all in the auction thing next week. So the second we got the auctions rolling, it'll be great. So I'll be kind of putting out some Instagrams on that and all that kind of stuff to remind you guys to go and get some bids in. It should be pretty awesome. I can't wait to see what everybody made and get some of those guys. So let's see here. Just double checking to make sure I didn't miss any other questions. Don't think so. All right, guys. So again, I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Go out and get some of those good deals while they're going on this weekend. Lots of good ones. And I want to remind everybody, I messed up. I didn't realize this. iCandy's got a pretty good sale going on, but you can stack Jake's code onto their Black Friday sale that's just automatic. All right. I missed out. I literally bought, and I was like, oh, great, iCandy's on sale. They had a couple colors. One of the things, I want to find a different gold. I was looking for a very specific color, so I had to buy a bunch of different ones to test out, and I thought, well, they got, some random colors that Turner's Warehouse doesn't carry. So I bought all these iCandy pigments, and then I find out I could have saved, I think, an extra 15%, and I'm like, oh my God. So make sure to do that. Double down on that discount on iCandy while you can do it. And Turner's Warehouse has some great deals going. There's probably tons. I don't keep an eye on all these different things unless I need to. But anyway, guys, I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks for joining the fun tonight. Thanks for all the super chats.